so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life, well, that's another. Which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the reflection and extension of you who will be here each Wednesday interviewing a different consciousness changemaker. And on the other 4 weekdays, leading the way to ensure that your perspective is consistently expanded, your vibration is constantly elevated, and your heart is overflowing and full. Also, this episode of the Positive Head Podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online, and you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. All right, all you positive heads, welcome back. It's a magical Monday here in the studio. As I record, hope it is magical, whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, really any day that ends in Y, wherever, whenever you are. Today I'm going to take some questions from listeners and haven't done that in a minute. And yeah, we have had some good ones coming in. So I'd like to encourage you guys to continue writing in with your questions. You can do that via the positivehead.com website. You can write me directly at brandon@positivehead.com, on the Facebook group, Positive Heads. If you're not on the Facebook group, you're missing out. You need to get in there before it fills up, before Facebook runs out of room to take new positive heads. Pretty sure that's not going to happen. Just kidding. There's plenty of room. We'll always be there for you. It is a private group, though. I will add for any of you who like the idea of being able to connect with other people on this similar path of expanding awareness and consciousness, and maybe you want to ask questions or for support or things like that without the rest of Facebook being privy to your thoughts or questions. So we made it private for that reason. Also, let's see. I am going to read a review here before I actually jump into today's questions. This one came in. Man, we're getting close. We're really close to 500 reviews on iTunes. So thank you guys for continuing. Let me just say, we're almost there. I imagine we'll cross that barrier, not a barrier, that's not a good word, threshold. I imagine we'll cross that threshold any day now, probably today or tomorrow or sometime soon. So thank you guys. That means the world to me to hit 500 reviews. That's pretty amazing. And those of you who have reviewed know it definitely fuels my fire to continue this labor of love when you give your feedback. And of course, the reviews help us to reach new people. So this review came in by a Whimsy, and the title is Daily Ritual. I look forward to listening to this podcast every day. I find Brandon's voice very familiar and comforting, and his happy spirit is contagious. The material he shares is a companion with me on my spiritual journey, and I've experienced profound growth as a result. Thank you for your work and love, Brandon. Aw, thank you, Whimsy, for your love, completing the circle of love that I'm putting out into the world by taking the time to review. So happy that I'm able to be with you on your journey in this way. To me, it's so cool to be able to connect, share, play any role in any of your spiritual journeys. Back to your authentic self, your higher self, the next greatest and grandest version of yourself. And to play a role in that is super humbling. It's an honor. It's inspiring to me. It's all the things. So thank you guys for taking the time to write in reviews. And with that being said, I would like to move right along to a question that I got this morning that came in right before I was about to start. And there was no response. If you write a question through the Positive Head website and you don't fill out the email, it just comes as an anonymous message. And to this person, I was like, well, there's sort of a time-sensitive question here, and there's some fear definitely involved in the question. And so I wanted to just go ahead and just address it, and in the hopes that whoever, this person, Michaela is the name, but I didn't have a response email address. So hopefully Michaela will listen to this before tomorrow, and you guys will understand that once you hear the question. What Michaela wrote was, "Hi there, Brandon. I'm in search of guidance, and I didn't really know where to look for an answer, but I thought of your show and was instantly reminded of Colby the Psychic Rebel and messaged her, but I doubt she has the time, and so I was wondering if you could lead me in the right direction. I believe all too much of the metaphysical world, so I take things like this way too seriously. I'm in Austin visiting family, and I had a really bizarre and extremely vivid dream last night. I was at a house party that I did not want to be at, so I went upstairs, and there were 3 old blind ladies with long white hair. One of the blind women had one unblind blue eye. I touched one of them on the elbow as I was introducing myself, and she ran away from me, and one of the others said she did not like being touched. I woke up and told my cousins about it, and one cousin mentioned the Greek mythology that there was something like that called the 3 Morai of the triumph of death, for which they hold the thread of life, and one holds the scissors to cut the thread of life. Which got me freaked out, knowing I have to jump on a plane tomorrow. So I busted out my cards and did a tarot reading with my question being, will I make it home safe? And got the High Priestess as my present, the Sun as my past, and the 10 of Swords for my future. The first 2 cards were great, but the future seems, not good. I'd love your interpretation, and if you think I should get on the plane or not. Haha, nervous laughter. Thank you so much, Michaela. I love you so much. And that's the end of it. So, Michaela, with your nervous laughter. Well, what did you say right here, encoded in the message? Let's interpret some of this stuff. Encoded in the message, I take this metaphysical things way too seriously. So dreams a lot of times are very symbolic, right? We know that. They're these symbolic things. To me, instantly, if I'm going to interpret what you had, what you experienced, what you dreamed, to jump to the conclusion that this means you should actually cancel your flight tomorrow, I would say no. Of course, that's for you to decide in the end. And what are we dealing with here? It made me think of an episode I did not too long ago, and I looked it up. It's episode 482. Titled How to Tell a Fearful Reaction Apart from an Intuitive Message. And one of the big things I believe with a fearful reaction versus an intuitive message is just that. If there's fear involved, if there's you projecting your own, taking it way too seriously, your own fears onto it, there's a difference than something that's sort of a knowing, right? Just a knowing about something. I have a deep knowing. There's not necessarily fear or not involved. And if it's coming from spirit, it's sort of neutral, and or love is injected into it, right? By default. And this is something that I can relate to. I've definitely dealt with irrational fears at times. It makes me think of an ayahuasca journey I did where a lot of times for me, as I've mentioned, fearful things and processing comes up because what ayahuasca does is, of course, where are your blockages? That's what it kind of goes to. It goes right to the source of anything holding you back from your next sort of greatest and grandest version of yourself, I would say. In my case, these fears would come up, and I remember, my son was flying in the next morning, and I called him in the middle of my ayahuasca journey, don't get on the plane, and then by a few hours later when I started to come back to, out of this fearful state, I'm like, oh no, he's got all these plans and he's going to see his grandmother and his siblings, his siblings from his mother. His siblings are going to be so disappointed. He only comes once a year. And so anyway, long story short, I ended up making sure he got on the plane after my fearful reaction. So I sense some of that here. These dreams, I didn't certainly. I think it's a stretch to assume this means that you shouldn't get on a plane. And one of the things to take into consideration, flying in general is safer than you're more likely to get in a car crash on the way to the airport than you are to actually crash in a plane. So go take a listen to episode 482. At the end of the day, if it's fear that's driving the ship, these are probably your own issues popping up. If it's a neutral or loving, intuitive knowing, that's something different. And I think that's really the differentiating factor. So hopefully Michaela will hear this in time. Moving right along, I would like to address another question I received. This came in from Alex actually wrote on Facebook, and Alexa. And Alexa said, "Hi, Brandon. So I had an interesting theory and wanted your thoughts on the matter. I was reading about the end of the world in biblical ideology, where it describes that the end of the world isn't a physical sense, but as an end of an era of man's society and geopolitical domination. That the corrupt civilization will be washed away and the new era will dawn at the return of Christ. And that the return of Christ will transition man from living under Satan's rule to living under his rule and living like Jesus, which was at the heart of the message of the biblical prophets and the gospels Jesus taught. But that before the return of the Christ, that cities and societies will terminate in a cascade of destruction and violence." Now, coming from a spiritual standpoint, man, Monday marbles in the mouth. Now, coming from a spiritual standpoint, my theory was that it really means the return of Christ is actually referring to people becoming less religious and more spiritual and on a higher path, more awakened people as in a Christ state. But before that happens, there will be increased violence and potential wars, which will in turn help motivate people to participate in politics and stand up for what they believe in, and will help each other out to slowly make the world a better place. And with the fall of the societies comes the fall of the money as we know, and we change our currency system to a barter type. The world becomes a lot simpler, a lot greener, and a lot more enlightened. What are your thoughts on the end of the world prophecy? Thank you so much, and I love the show. It has helped me in so many ways. Keep on doing you. Here's the link I was reading, and this is on ucg.org, and it's called The End of the World. What do I think about this? I think you're right on with some of the thoughts that you're mentioning here as far as from a spiritual perspective, really the idea, there's a lot of symbology in the Bible, and the idea of Jesus coming back. I don't really believe personally that Jesus himself is coming back, although, that soul certainly could reincarnate, I suppose. But what I do believe was being referred to, and this is just my personal opinion, is that it's Christ consciousness, as you alluded to here, that's coming back. So what is Christ consciousness? Well, I found an article on Golden Age of Gaia. It says the Christ itself refers to the light that we are, the self, the Atman, the Buddha nature, the child of God, pearl of great price, treasure buried in a field, measure of meal that leavened the whole loaf, or mustard seed that grew into a great tree. I like that description there. And so it's really coming into our remembrance of our divine self. And Jesus, and I've talked about this a lot on the show, Jesus said, I and the Father are one, even when they were about to put him on the cross, that was his argument. He said, well, isn't it written in your old books, in the Old Testament, ye are gods, because they were putting him on the cross because he claimed to be God. Well, that's really what I believe we all are, and that's what I'm claiming, but, not in a way that's egotistical, and I believe that we all are that. So this Christ consciousness coming back is definitely in line with what I believe, and I think we're seeing it now on this planet. We're seeing people waking up to their divine self, tapping into their higher self, source coming through more clearly, more expansion and perspective, less judgment, more awakening, more understanding of the process of separation and unification that we're all going through. and have been going through. And that's sort of the whole purpose of incarnating in the physical. So yeah, you have a lot of end times, doom and gloom kind of stuff. Even with the Mayans that was out there, I believe the same thing. It was really the beginning of a new era. So you read like Revelations in the Bible and it's very, cryptic and can seem very dark and scary. But I do believe, and we're seeing it now, there will be upheaval. There will be a lot of things. The old sort of has to crumble for the new to be born. It's look at the hardship of the caterpillar as it becomes a butterfly. It has to literally turn to goo before it can fly, right? So there is some destructive process in this awakening. However, that being said, if you're aligned with this Christ consciousness and you are aligned with, not latching onto the fear of whatever upheaval may come on our planet, earth changes or, political changes or the monetary system potentially collapsing like was mentioned here. I same thing with that. I believe we will move into a resource-based economy instead of a monetary-based economy. But during that transition, there could be upheaval. That being said, I'm not fearful because I know how closely aligned I am with helping the transition to be as smooth as possible, whatever may come, and that I'm telling the story that I will float through whatever comes. I am a tip of the spear of consciousness on this planet, as are you if you decide to be. Anyone listening to this show, I would say definitely that seed, that mustard seed of potentiality is there waiting for you to decide if it is to be fully realized. And most of you have decided that is the case for yourself, which is why you're resonating with this information, this reflection of yourself that is the avatar me in this moment, that is really just an extension of you, and there's really just us, right? And so I believe we're going to float through this whole process of awakening and remembering, and there will be things, there can be storms raging around, but we'll be in the eye of the storm, if you will, where the calm is, because we understand this is a process, that the caterpillar may have to turn to goo in order to become a butterfly. So that being said, I was looking for some stuff out there about this topic, and I found an interesting clip where it's related, not exactly this topic in the way that the question was asked, but I thought it was interesting, so I wanted to share. And it's by Teal Swan talking about the ascended masters. Who or what are they? And I found this on Teal Swan's YouTube page. It's a short clip here. Let's take a listen.
Hello there. This week I've been getting a lot of questions about the Ascended Masters, most specifically, who or what exactly are they? So let's dive right into the topic of conversation, because there's no time like the present. To begin, we have to see that we are all energy. We are a collective consciousness that exists in a state of potential energy. When that potential energy is focused, it becomes thought. That's essentially the process of the universal consciousness beginning to become a singular perspective. And once that thought is focused on enough, it becomes thought form. And when that thought form is focused on long enough, or with enough intensity, it becomes physical form. When we die, we withdraw our consciousness from physical form, and we also withdraw our consciousness from thought form, so that we exist in a state of potential energy once more. To those of us who are here in the earth plane in the physical dimension, that withdrawal of energy from the physical form takes the form of decomposition of the body. That's what it looks like. To those of us who are able to see the dimension of thought form, the thought form begins to dissipate. It will turn into an ectoplasm or an imprint. The thought form is in fact the level of a being where personality exists. These aspects of being diminish because there is no longer a stream of source energy feeding them or activating them. The best way to conceptualize of this is to imagine that the stream of consciousness that is coming into a life is like a snake. And in coming into life, that snake comes into 2 consecutive snake skins. When, in death, it pulls out of these 2 layers of skin, these snake skins still have enough energy that they do not disappear completely. Instead, they dissipate over time, and they begin to lose energy. But imagine that whenever it serves the universe at large to do so, it can project forth another stream of energy, or another snake, into that snake skin, and thus reactivate it. This is what's happening when we have a spirit guide. Essentially, Source is reactivating a thought form so as to relate that thought form or personality to you specifically in a way that benefits your expansion. How does this apply to Ascended Masters? They are essentially thought forms, personalities, that are being fed by universal consciousness for the benefit of ascension and expansion of mankind. Think of them like the ultimate spirit guides, reactivated snakeskins. They have enough energy that they take on the appearance of pure light. To understand more about this, you can watch my video on YouTube titled, Do Angels Exist? This video is important because many of these angels are in fact Ascended Masters. Source uses these specific thought forms because we relate to them. We already associate them with the idea of assistance, with the idea of growth, with the idea of ascension. So obviously Source is going to use those personalities to relate to you with regards to your own ascension. And we identify with them to the degree that they are even being fed by the focus of our own individual and collective consciousness, making these very powerful discarnate beings. So what's the most important thing to understand about what Ascended Masters really are? Ascended Masters are spirit guides for mankind or the human world at large, in the same way that a singular spirit guide would be a guide for a specific person. We choose to incarnate into life after life after life until doing so, being in the cycle of life and death, no longer serves our own personal expansion or the expansion of the universe at large, at which point we either stay part of the collective conscious, or we start to incarnate into other time-space realities, or we choose to stay as discarnate beings who assist the expansion of beings who are still part of the birth and death cycle. It is common that once one achieves the ability to line up with universal consciousness, often referred to as source mind, at will, that this is the point at which a soul stream opts to make the transition out of the cycle of death and birth. We often call this enlightenment. But it's not like this is the goal for us all, and once we achieve that state of living consciousness, we get a reward, and that's a sort of get-out-of-jail-free card for life, at which point we now assist other people to achieve the same. The Ascended Masters are personalities that have left the cycle of death and birth, which is why they are referred to as ascended. When viewed through the lens of time, some of these Ascended Masters are ancient, some of them are more modern, and some are literally so incredibly ancient that they have been completely forgotten by the consciousness of mankind. Now, it's really tempting to listen to experts who tell you that there are only so many Ascended Masters. In truth, there are thousands, if not millions, of Ascended Masters that are working with the world today and with humanity at large. Some of them you may never hear about, or never notice. Some you may hear about. It just so happens that in this particular time on planet Earth, specific Ascended Masters are more interested in the ascension of Earth, and so they're more active within human consciousness at this time. An example of just a few of these Ascended Masters are, of course, the ever-popular Saint Germain, Buddha, Jesus, Sanakumara, Serapis Bey, Kuan Yin, Metatron, Moses, Siddhartha, Lanto, Inanna, and Guadalupe. Most of them spend most of their time focused in the 6th dimensional frequency. Because they are guides that are assisting mankind, you can expect to run into them at some point in your spiritual journey. It's quite rare, in fact, that somebody really dedicated to the spiritual path does not run into these special energies. And they will always align with you at a point where your growth is a match to the specific frequency that that particular ascended master has attained, or their frequency that they can offer you to call you into a space of growth. Because humans are attached to the idea of levels of achievement, each of these ascended masters is associated with a different level of ascension. These levels of ascension are traditionally referred to as rays, and each ray is associated with a color, a number, and a spiritual quality. For example, Jesus is associated with the 6th ray, which is devotion and the abundance of God, and is represented by the color violet. But let's be honest, no expert can agree on these rays, or the colors associated with them, or the qualities associated with them, or who belongs to which ray, and I think it's fairly useless to think of ascended masters in this compartmentalized and status-oriented way. But by all means, feel free to study this class system if it calls to you. In my opinion, hierarchy no longer belongs in spiritual practice. I think it is best to receive the ascended masters should they present themselves to you in exactly the way that they present themselves to you specifically in that moment on that day, separate from a hierarchy system, separate from what you think you should know about them. It's almost much more pure if you can relate to them as the being who has appeared right in front of your face and specifically for you, separate of your conceptualized idea of them. So here's the fun little part about ascended masters. Because you are a part of human consciousness, you are connected to a specific ascended master, sometimes more than one. But we call this specific ascended master who you are connected to your principal ascended master. You could think of this a little bit like an assignment. You know that moment in grade school where they put you into different groups and they gave the different groups a color or whatever? Before coming into this life, you chose a life purpose. It's really the reason that your source stream even came into physical existence. And by virtue of that very intention, you got sorted into, into a group, shall we say, that is connected to one of these ascended masters. But you cannot make this a matter of logically guessing which ascended master is your primary ascended master. The ego will become involved in the process of selecting which one is your primary guide, and for want of significance, you may completely miss your actual primary ascended master. I tend to agree with the traditions that teach that you can ask the question of who is your primary ascended master, and then let go and allow that ascended master to show themselves to you specifically. This means you've got to let go of the process and you've got to look for the signs. So go ahead and do that, and have a good week.
So yeah, I think this is really interesting, some of the points that she makes here. I don't claim this is or definitively is or isn't the way things are working, although some of it definitely rings true. I think, definitely resonates the idea that some of these ascended masters are sort of like spirit guides on a mass level for the collective, because we have all kinds of evolutions happening. Our personal evolution, that's happening. Our collective evolution, and that's happening. The evolution of your town, of your country, of your, any groups that you can relate to, right? There's bird consciousness. There's human consciousness. There's the collective of all the living things on the planet. There's the consciousness of, our solar system. There's a consciousness that's nested in. It's like Russian dolls, the nested Russian dolls, right? So it makes a lot of sense to me, and it's the first time I've heard it put like this, that these ascended masters are sort of like collective spirit guides for mankind. And of course, in the West, here, Jesus being the Beatles of that whole group, and there being much lesser known ascended masters, and many that have probably been forgotten, as she suggested. I definitely relate to the character Jesus, as I mentioned before. I've mentioned it times before on the show. The whole Christ consciousness in particular, that character, for a long time being raised very conservative Christian. And of course, Jesus wasn't a Christian. He never said, worship me. He never said any of that. He taught, I am love. I am one with God, my Father, right? You will do greater things than I. I mean, he was basically teaching all the same stuff. With the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain, creating your reality with belief, all the things that we talk about on the show. And so I really resonate with that character, particularly. And, however, being raised conservative Christian, for many years, I was like, as I broke away from traditional religious thinking and thought, I was very anti the character Jesus. But as I've grown, I realized, hold on, he's been given, he didn't create these religions saying worship me, other people did. And what he actually taught is very much in line with everything we're teaching here, as I said. So definitely can relate to that character most of all, and of course the one I know the most about. But then again, I'm born into a group, right, as an American, that has really sort of put this person at the forefront. But there are many others that are very interesting to learn about and tap into. And I like the idea of reaching out and to tap into these characters and attempt to connect with them. So, hope you guys have enjoyed these questions. Please don't be shy. Write your questions. I love getting them. They're such a wonderful way for us to co-create this show together. It is your show too. This has been a wonderful, wonderful experience. I do have a track to leave you guys with. A track I'm pretty sure all the Ascended Masters would be getting down to if they were here. This definitely seems like a Jesus jam to me. This is Emancipator Udon. I love this track. Jesus loves this track too. I hope you do as well. Till next time, journey well. Love you all. Also, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear me constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out.
pas d'avant. Voir, prendre,